Hey there, Jesse Moore, Pickett Street Properties.
Dennis Pierce, Pickett Street Properties.
Today we want to talk about short sales through some smaller banks or some lesser known, well, I shouldn't say that. Let's just say they're not the big 5 banks.
Right.
And we're going to start, we have a new listing that has a second lien held by USAA.
USAA, right.
So what are you experiencing so far?
Well, actually, as soon as I sent through the off letter on this particular deal, which the off letter is the first piece we send back, that's what allows us to talk to the bank on the seller's behalf. Actually, the transmittal hadn't gone through before I got a fax back from USAA direct on the machine, laying down the terms of how USAA operates. And they have kind of some interesting stipulations as to how they work. They make it more challenging to get through the process. They kind of try to choke everybody off, and the interesting part is that they're a second.
Yeah, our seller called USAA to be proactive and just let him know that, and he was thinking about a short sale. And they were pretty not very nice. And
right.
Again, when people are doing a short sale, they're generally not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they have to. And so you got a short sale requirement sheet from USAA.
Right.
And this outlines what USAA expects in a short sale transaction. And I would say that this is the hard line. They are taking the hard line with this. And again, where we want to come from on this is that realize that as a second lien in Washington State, these guys, if they get foreclosed on, if this property gets foreclosed on, the second gets nothing, $0. Now they can pursue the seller for the deficient balance, but they'll still probably end up settling for pennies on the dollar.
Significantly less than what they had coming. And the thing that's interesting is taking the hard line right out of the gate. I mean, we understand this is a negotiation. I mean, everybody kind of draws their line in the sand, and then we try to work towards the middle, so it becomes a negotiation. But they start off at this point that's way far hard line from where most people do.
Yeah, and we have run into this before. This is a little, I don't think I've seen it laid out quite like this, where it's so rigid.
Right. Basically
saying that they're going to negotiate the realtor's commission down. They are going to make sure that the member can repay the deficiency. They will not allow for any buyer credits on the file, so they're not going to allow they're not going to allow the transaction to pay any of the buyer's closing costs. And then, I mean, it just goes on from there. And I'll just say, so here's what you run into with USAA and other smaller banks, is that I was going to say banks that don't get federal funding, but it's actually called USAA Federal Savings Bank.
Right.
But USAA has said that they did not take part in the HAMP or HARP program, getting federal funds, bailout money. And
so they lean on that pretty heavily to set their demands.
Yeah, they do, and they say, well, because we don't get federal bailout money, we don't do short sales, or we don't approve short sales easily.
We don't approve deficiencies, that's for sure.
Or the waiver of
deficiencies, rather.
Yeah, so, I mean, the reality is on these smaller banks, what you have to realize is that you kind of have to embrace foreclosure a little bit more. Like, you have to be, if we're going to have any leverage at all, they have to know that foreclosure is an option, and that option yields them $0.
Right.
And what we're going to offer them is an alternative, and that is some amount of money, some percentage of the balance being paid off. And we're going to campaign. We're still going to ask you. It doesn't matter to us that we get this sheet and it tells us what their expectations are. We have expectations as well, and we're going to fight to make sure that we do what we can to try to get that deficiency balance waived. We just want you to know that with USAA, it's going to be a little more challenging.
Right. Ultimately, we're your advocate. That's what we're here for. But it's interesting when we get kind of set up with this right out of the gate.
Yeah, and really, it's all about relationship. It's about our ability to then, talk to. We won't know as you move this short sale forward. We won't know how it's going to end until the end.
Yeah.
And so what it is, though, is you have to have agents that are willing to. They're not going to be intimidated by a piece of paper with a list of demands on it. Right. We're going to do our best to get them terms that work and mitigate their loss and get this seller out of this situation. So USAA and other smaller banks can be a little more difficult to work with, especially. But it's just funny to me. This is a second position lien,
Right.
and they're setting the terms.
Right.
Like it's up to them.
Yeah, exactly. So they have diminished leverage to start off with,
Right.
and yet they're trying to make it sound like they're in the catbird seat. So
Yeah, I mean they're making. I mean, if the first agrees to some of the terms, like full realtor commissions, and they're going to pay the buyer's closing costs, and if the second's getting some amount of money, it's outlandish to me that they would
right.
stomp their feet.
Yeah, they haven't had a conversation yet. In this case, Chase being the first, they haven't had a conversation with them, so they have no idea of
Right.
knowing where their first is coming from. So it'll be intriguing to follow this one through.
Yeah, we'll give you guys updates as this one moves forward, but just know USAA, at least in second position liens, and I'm sure that this is probably the same sheet they sent out on the first.
I would imagine
position
this
liens.
is their standard boilerplate that they send out.
So
to
just
everybody.
know that
Yeah.
their expectations are to their benefit, absolutely,
Yeah.
and you need to make sure you use listing agents that are experienced short sale agents that are going to be able to push back a little bit. All right, thanks guys.
Thank you.